Going on, everybody? Happy Friday to you. I got a real awesome treat for you guys. It's been a long time. I haven't talked to him in ages. He's a New Yorker, a fellow New Yorker, a fellow Yankee. I guess I'm kind of a Yankees fan. Yankee 49er thing going on. And he's always super, what's the word I'm looking for? Very, very, wow. I'm trying to give you like a great entrance and it's just not working. He's very
No,
kind with his time, even
okay.
though he might be he's an articulate, well spoken. He is the head honcho at Sprint Right Option podcast. I'm trying. I cannot believe it. I had this whole thing in my head when you were about to come on to do this and say how like you're very certain the way, even though you have all this knowledge and you're very knowledgeable on football, but you still give time to the people. To me, you're like essentially, you're like Hulk Hogan, The Rock.
Oh, damn. I
You're the,
appreciate
you're the
that, man.
dude. You're the dude. And we were talking off stream about like taking breaks sometimes away from football when there's no need to be there and just go and like I don't know, play Madden, go
Touch
hang out with
pass.
your kids or whatever. And now that there's actually something to talk about, everybody come on back. So
Yeah.
if I figure out what I was going to say to you, I'll just interrupt you while you're talking. But
Nah, it's cool, Aaron. I appreciate you, man. Hey, look, again, nobody's ahead of anybody. If I have time, I'd love to devote it because I always want to be the example that you want to see, right? So, there was a time where, even now, like I still feel like, we all have perceptions of where we are and all this. And like I look at people and if I ask somebody who I feel like is bigger and they give me time, I'm very appreciative of it. And
you
I want
too.
to make sure that I use their time wisely as well too. So I appreciate the kind words, man. And yeah, anything for a fellow New York 49er fan.
Yeah, I asked you via message the other day about this idea of doing a show. There's a guy I work with. We're both Rochester New Yorkers, both 49er fans. We both get a lot of grief. And I asked him straight up, I'm like, are you willing to do like a spot show, like every once in a while on the channel, just talking like, we got to come up with like a cool name or something. And you were like, do it, like,
Yeah.
do it. Just be
If
committed
you
to
feel
it.
it, do it. If you feel it, do it. That's it. And I think that's what a lot of people, have a hard time overcoming is their initial fears. But what people gravitate to is people that are passionate, right? Like
Yeah.
there's no right way to do it. There's no one way. It's not paint by numbers, any of that stuff. It's very much like passion, and people are going to be drawn to people that they feel are passionate and share some of the same views as them. And that's why, like, when I go off the rails sometimes in my post game show, say people like that because they feel as frustrated in that moment. Now, do I
Yeah.
look back sometimes and I'm watching my show and I'm like, damn, like you could have like pulled it back a little bit?
Yeah.
Sure. But in that moment, it's the voice of the frustration of certain people and they don't have a platform to get it off. So like they relate. And being relatable, I think, is the hardest thing for people to understand.
Like living through somebody else who could actually articulate what you want to say on a
Right.
platform. Like, you know what? I can't just go on a radio station and flip out. So I'm going to go listen to this dude because I know he'll be able to give it exactly how I'm feeling. Yeah, I had a show like that a couple weeks ago where I was just bugging out just about the Niners effort and just a lot of things. And I was really pissed. And a lot of people were like, wow, we like this, Aaron, because usually I'm kind of mellow.
Yeah.
So it was like it kind of felt good, but it's not something sustainable.
No,
Just
you
because
can't just
it's
keep
not
yelling, but you have to be real.
definitely. So we got the Niners in Jacksonville this Sunday. This is it's a big game. I had a very different perception of the 49ers about 4 weeks ago than I do right now. I bought into it. Super Bowl hype, talking best team in the NFC, all that jazz. Complete team victory against the Dallas Cowboys, and then just to see them unravel the last 3 weeks before the bye and go into the bye on a losing streak, dinged up, just a lot of questions about the D coordinators, everything. Them making a move for a spot or an edge rusher via trade deadline, and so there's a good chunk amount to talk about for the next like 40 minutes or so. So I guess the thing we'll start with is the big news that happened over the bye week, and that is the news of Chase Young being brought over to the 49ers via trade. Um, After you've had a chance to kind of reflect, sit with the bye week and everything, and getting ready to watch the game on Sunday, what's from when it happened till now, what's kind of like your overall kind of overarching feeling about it? Is it he's the difference maker, or is it the Niners still got to go out there and do, even though what's being coached may not be something that they're used to, they still got to go out there and execute. How are you feeling about the move overall?
And that's the thing, Aaron, is the defensive fix is not one thing, it's not the other, it's many things, right? I think we can all agree the pass rush has underwhelmed. I think we can say that this defense hasn't lived up to expectations player wise.
Nope.
I think we can all agree that Steve Wilkes hasn't put them in positions to succeed. It's all of these things. Now, what I've been kind of thinking about this is obviously Chase Young's a difference maker. And when you get him for a third round pick, which the 49ers are not good in the third round, and look no
Right.
further than this draft
Mm-hmm.
in the third round. Like I'm big on Tig. Like I think Jair Brown is a baller. He just hasn't been on the field. But Latu's hurt, and obviously taking a kicker is just absolute malpractice. Um, when you look at that and what you're getting for Chase Young, it's an absolute steal. Now you add to the pass rush, you have the week off with the bye week, but you're running out of excuses now.
Yeah.
Right now, you're running out of what's the problem? Is it scheme? Is it pass rush guys? You're running out of it now. Now, after a week off, after you looked yourself in the mirror, after you've gone through, how do I, further this defense? How do I? It's at a point now where it's like put up or shut up.
Yep.
And against which I kind of dropped this on the show earlier that I just did. Brock Purdy is going to be in back-to-back weeks facing a number one overall pick quarterback. This may be the first time, probably in NFL history, that this has ever happened. A last pick quarterback facing back-to-back weeks of Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence, both number one overall quarterback picks. But on the defensive side, you're running out of excuses now. You have the players. And I think that everybody wanted them to address cornerback. And I think that's valid, but it takes two to tango. Who knows? I'm sure they asked. I'm sure they were talking. But if you can't come to an agreement, that's not, well, the 49ers fumbled the bag and they didn't, like it's not that. But you run out of excuses now. Chase Young's here. You had the week off. It's in Jacksonville. And now this game has turned into a must win game because now you're running out of excuses. And you go out of the bye week and you lose this game, and now you are 5-4. The Tampa Bay Bucks are not like sitting on the other side like as some sort of cakewalk. There is no cakewalk in the NFL. And then your schedule gets markedly harder, right? You have a path to getting back to the number one seed, but it has to start now. And the defense has to start playing now. And the offense has to stop turning the ball over. So hopefully this bye week was good for everybody.
I couldn't agree more. One thing I hate is cliches from players, cliches in interviews. Guys telling me they know what the problem is and they just got to go out there and fix it. I hate hearing that. I've been a 49ers fan maybe a little bit longer than you. I'm going on 44 years old soon. And the one thing I've always hated over time, and this is going back to when I was a kid, is when you hear a press conference and you hear the guy say all the right things, and then they come out the next week and they do it again, and then you hear him say all the right things, and then they come out the next week and they do it again, and it's like, okay, I'm sick of hearing you talk. In fact, if there's an interview that they're going to ask you about stuff, I'm probably not going to watch it because it infuriates the hell out of me.
Mm-hmm.
There is no way conceivable with the talent that they have on this roster that they could be struggling this bad on defense. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, every level of their defense has an elite player or at least a high level player. Their
Right.
secondary might be suspect, maybe, but I think Diamador Lenore, for the most part, has probably played the best of the two outside corners. I mean, that's debatable. I mean, some people might say,
Yeah.
but to me, Javarius Ward has kind of struggled.
He's been ridden with penalties. Like when you go back and you look at everything, it's the penalties that's really killing him. And then I think he's kind of marred because of that Jordan Addison touchdown at halftime, the Minnesota
Yeah.
game.
Yeah,
He
that
hasn't
was a
really
tough
like
one.
like he hasn't been like picked on, but Ward is supposed to be your main guy. So that's the thing that the expectation comes with we're locked in here. You're the guy, and you kind of expect bumps and bruises with Lenore. But it's kind of been the other way around.
Yeah. And then you look at the linebackers. Of course, I know that Greenlaw was playing hurt, but I mean, like the defensive line. I talked a lot with people in the off season. We used to talk right around the free agency period about I just wasn't comfortable with the Niners rush and cut like their pass rush. Like it was essentially Bosa and a bunch of dudes, and they made a Hargrave move, but still, it's like there's literally two guys in that defensive line that can make pressure, and then the rest of them are just kind of people, intermix whoever you want. Clellan, Farrell, uh, for a while, Austin Bryant. I knew he wasn't going to make the roster. He's what practice squad guy. Drake Jackson. I wasn't big on Drake Jackson. I
It's not working.
remember if the first game I was like, watch this be the only 3 sacks this cat gets all year. And everyone's like, you're such a hater. I'm like, no, I just don't. Current setup of this defensive line, it just doesn't do it for me. And I was comparing them to like Philly and Dallas, and everyone's like, oh, no, the Niners are better. And I'm like, no, they're really not actually. Bose is kind of like the only guy who's a legit pass rush threat, right? And then it happened. They make the move, and it's like we were calling that, and then Drake Jackson all of a sudden comes up with the mysterious injury, and he's not going to play Sunday,
Well,
which
his
to
snaps
me
were
is
dwindling anyway.
yeah, he's not getting any snaps. I guess I saw it coming, but I think I remember getting somebody subtweeted me. I don't know if they call it subtweeting when somebody tweets you but they don't name you.
Okay.
Um, and I made a comment about like, hey, I'm happy the Niners are 5-0, but I'm seeing some issues down the road that I think might be a problem when it came to like their pass rush and stuff, defense. And somebody was like, "Oh, you just got to like live in the moment and like enjoy the fact that they're 5-0 and stop complaining and nitpicking." I'm like, it's not really a nitpick. It's go up against some real competition. You're gonna have some problems. And sure enough,
Mhm.
they went against Joe Burrow. Say what you want about Kirk Cousins. He's pretty damn good when he's healthy and has time to throw. And now they find themselves in a situation where they have to go and spend draft capital to go get a guy that is probably only going to play half a season. So I felt like they could have addressed this earlier in the offseason. A lot of people were saying Yannick Ngakoue probably wasn't going to happen, right? I was pulling more for like a Justin Houston type, uh, you know, someone a little bit less expensive. They did none of that. They stuck to their guns and with the guys that they had. And then to me, it was a mistake. And now the fact that they're owning up to it without saying anything by making the move is just like could have done this back in March and not had this problem. But whatever. I don't know anything. I'm just a football fan. But yeah,
Well,
definitely interesting.
that's the thing is, when you look at like, oh well, they're rolling with him. Well, they invested in Drake Jackson, right? And they believed in him a little bit, and they talked about his progression, all that stuff, right? Like, and then when you make a move and you have all that cap space, it gives you that flexibility just in case something doesn't pan out, something's not working, right? Like, I think that was one of the things that I was most impressed with during this time, like when they were able to clear all that space, because
Hmm.
obviously the idea was to roll it over, and they still are going to roll it over. They're paying nothing for Randy Gregory. They're not really paying much for Chase Young at all either. They'll have a decision to make, next season based on what he's going to do. My kind of overall feel right now with Young is Young understands and is very smart about what he needs to put on tape in order to ask for a multi-year deal. And I think that's going to put him in a spot where he may be tagged or maybe plays on a 1-year deal and then comes back to the table because he has to stack these years before people would actually throw money at them, unless you always have to put this caveat out there. Other teams are just going to blindly throw the money at him because he's been great. Like, he's been great since he's come back. He has been great, and you're just gonna go ahead and bet on that. But I think he's smart in where he can get a 1-year deal for what, like a $15 million, guaranteed number. And then if he stacks another season on top of that, can come back to the table and say, hey, listen, this is what I want. This is what I should be paid. He's still very young. So it's interesting how the politics of rosters go in terms of like you drafted a guy, you've got to kind of see it through.
Yep.
Regimes live and die on the success of players. The only way to really judge, and obviously I'm not talking about that Lynch and Peters, any of those guys or Shanahan are in trouble because they've had far more hits. And the hits that they've had haven't just been like solid players. They've been all pros and guys who have really dominated. But regimes live and die on the success of players. So you have to kind of see that through. You have to kind of, hey, it's been a process, but you can't get off of it right now because then you're admitting a mistake. All those things. It's very interesting to watch like the roster politics in terms of, hey, we have to make sure this works so we look good right now. Like we we keep our job, right? Like guys lose jobs on blown picks or giving up too quickly. Because if a guy goes somewhere else and he dominates or he turns into the guy that you thought, that's an indictment on you. So the Drake Jackson thing, I didn't really fault them too much because they were talking about his progression. And then, Farrell and Brian and all those guys, they're all rotational guys. The problem really up front is, Aaron, is you expect things from three guys, right? And this is obviously before Chase Young got here. Bosa, Hargrave, and Armstead. I expect, there's no development. I expect you to dominate. I expect you to get to the quarterback. And then that other line, that other spot, you're hoping for a progression, a jump from Drake Jackson where he can play every down, or it turns into a rotational thing where someone's situational and they can play in and out, and you'll find a way to get it done. But that's kind of where we're talking about, like, there's a lot of things going on with the defense, and so much of it is, well, hey, sometimes the players are underperforming. They're not putting good in spots. Like there's so many things about this defense that's going wrong that it's not one thing. Like if it was straight up schematically, like we're just like we can point our finger to that. And I have a hard time understanding that argument, Aaron, because everybody always wants to put their 2 cents in about what they should do.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, just run press man. Yeah, you're gonna run press man against Jamar Chase and just let him run right past you. Like it's not one fix. Every personnel is different. You have to attack them differently. But it is a little bit of everything, right? It's a little bit of penalties. It's a little bit of underperforming. It's a little bit of schematics, right? Like sometimes Steve Wilkes does call a good play, and then
Let's
Travis
analyze
Ward.
that though. Let's
Yeah,
move to that
yeah,
topic.
yeah, yeah,
Steve Wilkes.
yeah.
How much of this is on him? If you had to place blame, because I mean, these are the same players that have performed under the two previous defensive coordinators, and now all of a sudden they look like they never played football before together. Like as a team, it just what happened? Like
I think it's a complicated answer, right? You got wide nine. That's something Steve Wilkes hasn't really run, right? And I do think that a lot of the criticism that Steve Wilkes gets, shout out the great 1765. He's always on the channel. Appreciate you, bro. A lot of the criticism that Steve Wilkes gets is based on his experience as a coach. But what people don't remember is he's only called plays for two teams in his illustrious career. He wasn't the play caller in Carolina. He did not call plays in Carolina. So you're looking at a guy who everyone expects is plug and play. You're about to, hit the ground running. You got all these studs, and he's a secondary guy. So to see the secondary struggle, to see this offense kind of this defense take a step back, it's more about there was leeway given to Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans because you knew they were first-time play callers. But I remember when D'Amico was here, and every 49er fan wanted to fire him after every first half. Every first half. We got to get rid of Ryans. Someone like, I mean, hey, look, it's natural to be frustrated in the moment. But the reason that Steve Wilkes gets no real leeway is because he is a veteran coach and he was expected to come right in and just hit the ground running with this team. But when you look at his actual play calling chops, it's only been 2 years.
yeah.
So it's more about understanding, hey, he's going through his bumps and bruises in the same way. Look, everybody wanted Saleh gone. Everybody loves Saleh after that, right? Same thing with D'Amico, right? Like, it's just like, oh, I don't know if we can get this done. D'Amico was absolutely spectacular in 2021, man. Like, down the stretch, like, being able to get this team ready to go and get to that NFC title game. Like, the way that he covered up Ambry Thomas, that is just somebody who hit his stride, going forward. I don't think that people are looking at Steve Wilkes from that perspective because he's so experienced. It could be very well that he's going through those same sort of growing pains. It's just hard to understand because he's been a coach for so long. So it is a little bit of a few things. And it's unfortunate stuff, right? Like that cover zero blitz against Minnesota. If Mooney intercepts that ball, no one even goes back. No one even goes back and looks at that play. No one even goes back and looks at that play. They say, great play, Mooney. That's your second pick. But because it ended the way it did, you go back and then you're like, what happened? and you look at that call, and then Kyle Shanahan says, "I wouldn't have called that. I wish I would have called timeout." And it's Pandora's box because it feels like Steve Wilks is being a scapegoat for missed tackles, penalties, all of those things, and I don't like it. Yeah, there you go, right? I don't like that part. Like Steve Wilks coming down to the sidelines is not going to make this team tackle better.
Right.
And
That's the next thing is like, yeah, him being the sideline, how much is that really going to change the defense? So he can look them in the eye and still call the wrong play, but maybe possibly. I don't know. It's like Great One said, he's like, we can't blame him for the missed tackles. This team has like what, around 40 missed tackles in a 2 or 3 week stretch prior to the bye week. That's just you. You can say whatever you want about plays being called, but if you're missing tackles at that clip, you're not going to do well.
Fred Warner's had an amazing season. He's missed 15.4% of his tackles.
That's crazy.
And that's because what we expect of Fred, right? And there's something that I wrote about, and a lot of people just kind of are brushing it off. And it's not that it's an excuse. It's not an excuse. It's just a reasoning, right? So you hear Kyle Shanahan say, "Hey, this team looks slow on film, right? They look tired." And everybody's like, "How can they be tired in week 7? How can they be tired?" Well, the 49ers had already faced 3 teams out of the bye. Flew cross country from Minnesota on Monday to face the Cincinnati Bengals off of a bye.
Yeah.
All of those things matter. That's why they look a little slow. I wrote a whole article about the 49ers have the least amount of rest day
Yep.
advantage. I believe
Yep.
it's 26 days they're behind every other team. Now, look, it's not an excuse. It's the NFL. They're not the first team that has been put through the ringer when it comes to that, like traveling, right? You got to find a way to get around that. But if you're wondering why this defense has looked a step slow, has missed tackles, looks like they're like blowing on air, like and puffing on gas, during these games, all of that stuff lines up. It really does. So it was a little bit of just like when you look at an opponent, you say, "Hey, whatever, they're better than them." But if you're a step slow and they've got rest and they've got a good game plan and you're not executing, all of those things equate to a loss. All of them. And that's kind of we kind of just got spoiled through the first 5 weeks and we thought that this was going to continue. And anybody
Yep.
who's ever watched the NFL has seen that that's not going to happen. Like it's just not going to happen. You have seasons where teams roll over teams and go crazy and everything, right? You know, I'm old enough to remember the 98 Vikings 15-1, didn't win a Super Bowl. Old enough to remember the New England Patriots won every game, didn't win a Super Bowl. It's just
Yep.
how it doesn't work like that. Like that's not how the league's going to get you. So it's just a lot of that stuff is things that we kind of have overlooked, I feel. And I think that that's a little bit that should give you a little bit of insight to why you feel like this defense is stuck in the mud.
One of the excuses that's been bandied about, and you were talking about in the beginning, no more excuses, has been the injuries. Most notably to Debo and Trent Williams. I was kind of on the record early in the season because I was kind of following not really the everybody else, but I thought Brandon Ayuk was on pace to have a really great season and have not just putting up numbers, but actually a season where he becomes kind of like the number one guy. Makes Debo expendable. Maybe Debo's wearing down and you move him and yada yada yada. You're able to pay Brandon Ayuk, and man, that fell on its face quickly during the season. Now we see how different this offense is without Debo Samuel in it. It's night and day. It's funny, me and my brother's a Dolphins fan. We talk about how like our offenses are similar and how player dependent they are with all the stuff we do, with all the window dressing, with all the motions, with all the this, all the that. And like me, one guy, two guys go down in that particular type of offense where it's so player based. And man, you look like a completely different team. Like Miami without Tyreek Hill, not the same team.
Of
Niners
course.
without Debo in a different sense. Debo's not the fast guy. Debo's just, I don't know, man. Like he can do a lot of things from play wide receiver to running back to blocking to whatever you want. And Brandon Ayuk is a really electric guy. He can get open. He's got crazy athletic ability, but I don't know. I don't know if the moment gets too big for him or he shuns away the spotlight. I don't know exactly what it is, but he's kind of disappeared the last couple weeks. He had big numbers against the Bengals, but really didn't really do anything. You know what I mean? Like game changing that would make you say, okay, he's the number one guy. So how much are injuries an excuse for what the Niners are dealing with? And I'm talking like Trent Williams. A lot of people saying the running game has been affected. I think the running game is affected too by Debo not being there as well. What is your take?
Well, I mean, it doesn't help. Like, we're not talking about like starters, like for a team. We're talking about the best left tackle in the world. We're talking about one of the best offensive weapons in the
Yep.
game. So it's not inconsequential, but it's not an excuse. So in a game in Cleveland where Debo leaves after a few plays and Trent Williams isn't himself clearly, where when you look up the stat sheet and you see like 5 and 6 pressures, you know Trent Williams is not right. Like you know that for a fact that he's not right. I don't care who's on the other side. It
Yep.
could be Jack Lambert, it could be Reggie White. I'm gonna take Trent almost every single time and feel good about that. But then you have that game, and then you have a shot to win it with a field goal, and you have a chance to get out of there and win, right?
Yeah.
Well, you missed the field goal. You missed 2 field goals in that game. So now you lose that game. Okay. The Minnesota game, you fumble the football in the red zone. Christian McCaffrey. You had that play at the end of the half. All of these things add up to losses. The Cincinnati game, right? They move the ball up and down the field. You get to the red zone, Pratt makes an unbelievable play on a busted play. Purdy's supposed to hand the ball off to Mitchell. All those little mistakes are what is killing this team. And we have this conversation every single year about this team, Aaron. Every year. Every year. Every year under Kyle Shanahan, they hit these skids where they're just like, man, they are beating themselves. It's little things. That's what has me at least somewhat optimistic because it's correctable. If the 49ers were going out there and getting their doors blown off
Right.
by the team that they're facing, and just like,
True.
I'm just like, they can't compete. They can't compete. But they're doing it to themselves. Whether it's a penalty that will keep a drive going for a third down, whether it's an interception or a fumble in the red zone, whether it's a missed field goal, whether it's a blown coverage, it's you. It's you, right? Like it's not like you can't compete with these teams. So there is that part of it that still has me hopeful. And that's what this is what I'm talking about. Like, no more excuses. Bye week, clean it up. Everybody's coming back. Maybe Trent's gonna play it. We don't know yet. He said he's up in the air and it's gonna go down to the last moment. We're gonna find out. All of that stuff is true. But at least you can point to things that you can say are correctable. You know what's not correctable, Aaron? Getting your ass beat from pillar to post. There's nothing you can do schematically, nothing. If you are not better than a team, it does not matter. I don't care what you're doing. You're not going to find a way to win games. That's not the case with the 49ers. The
No.
49ers are still as supremely talented as we believe they are.
Yep.
But the things that they are doing are causing them to lose games. So is the team that you saw the first 5 weeks? Is the team that you've seen the last 3 weeks? I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. It's not as dominant as you believe it is
Which is not
because
a
that
sexy thing to say, but
yeah.
I feel the exact same way.
Yeah, like it's not they're not gonna roll everybody over like they did in the first 5 weeks, and they're not gonna roll over in the way that they have in these last 3 weeks or lose in this fashion. The answer is somewhere in the middle because it's the NFL and guys are gonna compete, right? So that's the thing. It's like it's easy to point to things, one thing in a game and say that, but it's kind of been every facet of the game. And I don't know why it just gives me comfort because if it was one thing where if I was like, oh my God, it's just the defense, like the defense can't, like I would be far more worried. But it's like I can point to things and say, hey, look, break here, a break there, a break there. Got to put some blame on Purdy too. Look, yes. But overall, what I would say about Brock Purdy, he's largely the same guy that we saw last year. The turnover luck has been poor. At the end. But in the Cleveland game, he got them in the field goal range. I mean, the stupid kicker didn't make the kick. Like
Yeah.
what is he supposed to do? He can't kick it too, right? Like if Jake Moody makes that kick, this team might just be 6-2 going into this game. And then we have a whole different
Which is one
conversation about
game
Brock.
behind Philly.
Right. And then we'd have a whole different conversation about Brock.
Yeah.
Oh, he led a game-winning drive. Right? Like I have a hard time putting it all on him because you shouldn't be putting it all on him on the offense.
I agree.
And
I know that's boring to some people, but there's been so much. It's not just Brock. There's other things on offense too. People dropping, Brandon Ayuk disappearing in games. Like what's
Christian
going on,
McCaffrey
bro?
fumble.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey fumble. Christian McCaffrey. The one thing about Brock, I called it early in the season, and this isn't like a thing like, oh, I called it. I know what I'm talking about. I had a feeling he was gonna hit a pass this year. like where the league was going to catch up a little bit. He's going to play some
He
bad
had to,
football.
Aaron. He had to run into a patch because it's football. Every single quarterback, no one
Even the
is gonna
great
do.
ones.
Yeah, no
Montana
one
had
is
bad
going to do.
games.
Everyone just saw. Everyone has just saw what Brock did, and it's fascinating, Aaron. And I want to kind of toss this to you real quick, actually.
Okay.
When I evaluate quarterbacks, I tend to hold back my judgment without a large sample size. Brock Purdy is going to start his 14th NFL game on Sunday. And yet, after 5, after 8, he's the real deal. That's it. He's better than this guy. He's better than that guy.
Yep.
Why can't it be, hey, let's gather information? Why is it that everyone, like, it's the quarterback evaluation process has been completely tossed aside with Brock Purdy? It's fascinating. It is
It
really
is.
fascinating because you look at Brock Purdy and you say, well, that's it. We know we got our guy. And that's it. And he's better than this guy. He's better than Herbert. He's better than Lawrence. He's better than. No, he's not better than Herbert. No, he's not better than Lawrence. He doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to be. But it's fascinating to watch people eschew the entire quarterback evaluation process because other times when you're asked, right? Trevor Lawrence struggles in his first year. Well, he needs time, right? Like he needs a little bit of time, right? But with Brock, it was just like, oh, well, this is it. Like, this is the guy he is, and this is the guy he will be. There's still room for improvement, and there's still going to be ebbs and flows. My question to you, Aaron, is just like, how did we get to a place where Brock Purdy eschews any sort of evaluation, any sort of like, hey, I want to see a little bit more, but he has to be this guy or he has to be this guy. Like, he has no middle ground. Everybody's like, oh, he's top 10, he's elite, or he's trash. There's never a discussion about, well, one, he doesn't have to be top 10, he just has to execute the offense. And two, why are we making grand proclamations after he's not even on his 15th start as a quarterback?
We did the opposite with Trey Lance. We
The
automatically
absolute opposite. A shoot him after 4, and after 14, it's like, well, he's the man.
we I told people, I said, you can't say that a guy is a bust if he hasn't even played 5 games total. Just like you can't say a guy is the greatest thing since Steve Young after a handful of games. I said we did it in 2017. I fell for the Jimmy Garoppolo, not the dimple in his chin, but like he was playing some pretty good football, but it was against meaningless team. It was meaningless, games. No pressure to play, and I fell for it too. And then we lived through all the Jimmy stuff. I didn't think Brock was the greatest. Like going to be this great quarterback. I thought he was maybe a slightly higher level than Jimmy as far as like he doesn't up until recently he doesn't throw game tilting
He's
interceptions.
better than Jimmy, though. I think. I
Right.
think I can
I
say that.
think
I
so.
can
I
say
think
that.
he can
Yeah.
make bigger throws down the field. But a lot of people who had issues with just the hyperbole of just saying he's this, he's great, he's that, but yet at the same time with a microscopic sample size with Trey Lance. Trey Lance is a bum. He's a bust. My issue, I'll tell you what my issue. My issue is people that are still bringing up, and I'm bringing it up, like people who make like post about it, and they'll be like, "This is we should find a way to trade and get him back, or this, that, and the other." It's like, guys, we would be going through the same slide right now if he was here, like no questions asked. Like, it's not it's over with. It's happened. It's past. But yeah, you're right. The just the uneven way of grading quarterbacks. It's such like what happened to like I mean Troy Aikman. I think he was into like his 3rd season before he was actually decent. And then they had that great defense, and I know you probably don't want to give any credit to the Dallas
Not that.
Cowboys, but
Not that. No, 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 not that. I think that Troy Aikman's one of the greatest game managers ever.
he is. If you look at his career numbers, they're abysmal. They're abysmal.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Touchdown to
he's one.
interception ratio, crap.
He did his job. That's why I don't understand why everybody needs to feel like
They have
Brock's
to
better
have,
than this guy.
yeah,
Brock's better. Brock doesn't have to be better than anyone. Brock has to execute the offense. And I don't care. 27, you know, homie. I appreciate you, bro. I don't care what the numbers say. I will take Trevor Lawrence every single day of every week and twice on Sunday over Brock Purdy.
of
I don't care
course.
what the numbers say. Numbers can conflate and absolutely ruin box score watching is probably the worst thing that you ever can do.
That's what
Trevor
ESPN does.
Lawrence, Trevor Lawrence has at least 4 to 5 touchdowns dropped, which would drastically change his numbers. I implore you, watch the games, please. Watch the games. The box score, the box score made you believe Drake Jackson was a 3-sack machine when Eric Armstead ran every single one of those sacks into Drake Jackson's arms. The box score will tell you things. The box score will tell you things that are wrong.
Yeah.
I don't care if Brock Purdy's numbers are better than Trevor Lawrence. I will take Trevor Lawrence every single day
Yeah.
and twice on Sunday.
Yeah.
Every day.
I think people who know I'm a Brock Purdy fan think that I'm as like oblivious guy who thinks like he can do no wrong. No. I just thought he was the best option this season and at certain points last season too when he took over. I thought he played exceptional. Did he get carried a lot of games? Yes. But he's also
I don't know if he
had
got carried. I wouldn't say that though, Aaron.
he listen, there he was I think he played great at stretches last year, and I thought he's played great some of the times this year. But it all has to do with the whole picture, of like the offense and the weapons and the coaching. It all matters, You take two of those things away, and then you have a whole different situation.
And I'll tell you this, Aaron. I think that because Purdy is surrounded by Shanahan and these playmakers, it actually is a detriment to him.
I know.
I want to go on record and say that I think that I've been far more impressed with Brock Purdy this season than I was last year. Regardless of how these three games are not going to cloud his overall season. He's throwing the ball down the field better. His interception rate has actually dipped. And obviously that has to do with the fact that he didn't throw an interception for the first 5 weeks and then he has it. But it still dipped from his time. Brock Purdy has played largely good to great this season. And the throws are on tape, all of them. I don't want to conflate this and get this wrong. I'm trying to tell you, like, Brock doesn't have to be better than anyone else to succeed. It's the quarterback rankings thing is the strangest discourse, I think, for me in any sort of NFL Twitter circles. And what I mean by that is this idea of elite. Well, Aaron, who's elite? Mahomes? Some weeks Josh Allen? Some weeks Lamar?
Burrow?
Some weeks Burrow? After that?
That's it.
After that, all these guys are guys. And some weeks, Dak is 8. Some weeks, Dak is 16. Some weeks, Cousins is 7. Some weeks, Cousins is 15. Like, everyone's talking about elite, but who's elite? Who's elite? And how many are there? There's 32 quarterbacks that start. There's 4 guys that you might be able to say are elite. And certain weeks, when I watch Josh Allen play, I'm like, that's not elite. Certain weeks when I watch Burrow, that's not elite. Mahomes is truly the only elite guy, and he gets away from any sort of criticism because of what he's able to do and what he's accomplished.
His physical talent and his ability to make plays out of nothing is what separates him.
And his track record.
He's won got 2 chips. He's got
won
2
bowls.
chips.
He's won bowls. That's elite.
Yes.
But why does Brock have to be elite? Why does Brock have to be elite?
I think it's 49er fans just want to have that ability to say that they got one of those guys too. Because it's been a long time since we've had one of those guys. But we don't. You're right.
But no. And the thing is, what the 49ers are looking at, and 49ers fans, is they want a guy, like a franchise guy for years. He doesn't have to be Steve. He doesn't have to be Joe. I think that is the most ridiculous expectations. And this is the weirdest part about the Purdy discourse. It is so strange to me that the need to say Purdy's better than Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. No, he's not. And he doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to be at all. And the way that I would conflate this and talk about this argument is, if Brock Purdy was on the Chargers, do the Chargers have a better record?
No.
If Justin Herbert was on the San Francisco 49ers, would they have the same record or better?
I don't know.
Is yes, Aaron. The answer is yes.
Yeah, I guess talent-wise, yes, but he makes some head scratchers. Clutch-wise. That leave you scratching your head.
Now
physical
look,
talent matched with the talent that we have, I think, yeah, probably would be better.
and
But
look
he
who
does
he'd be
do.
paired with. Look who he'd be paired with a play caller who look again. Everybody loves to talk crazy about Kyle, right? Sometimes, but Kyle can open up windows with this is when the run game's working. So I guess we can go back to like talking about the offense. Kyle can open up windows with run game action. Like a linebacker looks at the right guard or the left guard and he watches him pull on an RPO and he starts to move that way and it opens up a window where it's a pitch and catch on a slant throw that normally wouldn't be there because of the coverage. It's those little things that are there. And then when you put it in a position where Kyle is able to sit there with him, it's really at this point. Look again, I despise the way that Purdy being a quarterback for the 49ers and under Kyle Shanahan and with these weapons, he gets knocked down for the throws. The guy makes big boy throws. He makes big boy throws, and he's probably the best thrower of the football that we've seen on his team since like Jeff Garcia, in my opinion. And that includes Jimmy. Purdy makes big boy throws. It's just now the interceptions are happening at critical times. And you can't put everything on him because I can say the same thing about Josh Allen. I don't want Josh Allen dropping back 35, 40 times in a game. That's not good for
No,
anybody.
no,
Purdy has
you're right.
played very, very well this season. Very well. But the whole he needs to be he's better than Lawrence. He's better. None of that matters. It doesn't matter for anything more than discussion, and he doesn't have to be. Take care of the football, operate the offense. Brock Purdy has been playing very well,
He
very well.
has.
He's
He
not
has.
better than Trevor Lawrence, and he's not better than Justin Herbert. I don't give a damn what the numbers say. I don't give a damn what the numbers say. Numbers be damned. Numbers are going to get you in trouble. Trey Jackson was leading the league in sacks after week 1. 3
Yeah.
sacks. Ain't
Do
seen him
your
again.
do your
Ain't,
research. Watch
ain't seen him
film.
again. Watch
Right.
the games. Watch
Yes.
the games. It's there. Trevor Lawrence, if he doesn't have 5 drop touchdowns, literally 5. He had 3 in one game. 5 drop touchdowns. What do his numbers look like? I
It'd
mean,
be
come
insane.
on, man. Like, again, I don't understand why Purdy has to be better than these guys when all he has to do is operate the offense the way he did. And that will be enough. And he's still playing very well. I don't know, man. It's this weird Purdy discourse that's got me a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm being all along with it on your show.
No,
I'm
no,
sorry.
and it's because there's been a lot of uh, weird thing to define Purdy week to week. Like we got to define him. Well, some people get obsessed with having to define Purdy. Like just like you shouldn't have defined Trey Lance after a short amount of time. You should. Every game is like, no, no, he's clutch. No, no, he's a bum. No, no, look, he made a really good throw there in that game in that quarter. He's a great quarterback. And then the next play he throws a pick. It's just there's too much of this escalator of like overanalyzing everything from play to play, from game to game. You're right though. He doesn't need to be the guy. He just needs to be essentially efficient and stay out of the way and be a facilitator. Real
He needs to
quick
operate.
before
Yeah.
before we get out of here, I want to
No, I
ask.
got you. No, you know what? We're vibing. I got you for another 15 minutes. Let's go. Let's keep
All
going.
right,
Because I
cool.
feel like we just yelled about Purdy for a bunch and like we haven't really gotten to the root like of this team. So yeah.
All right. I want to ask you about. We talked about the defense before, but I want to go back to it. I saw something somewhere about the Hargrave signing being an absolute failure so far. I know, well, actually, I don't know. I want to know your opinion on the Hargrave signing as far as what he was supposed to mean to this defense and the combination of him and Bosa and all this other stuff. I fell for it too. We all talked about it in the offseason, how excited we were to have, a real defensive tackle since Forrest Buckner.
Yeah.
What's been your opinion of uh, Javon Hargrave so far? I've been extremely underwhelmed and almost to the point of like, I don't, I never see his name get called other than early in the season where he got a couple sacks. Like, what's your overall take from Javon Hargrave at the moment?
Early in the season, Hargrave was returning dividends like right away. Like, and
Right.
you were just like, oh my God, like, his season is kind of an indication of how the 49ers have been. Just early on out of the gates, you get out strong, but consistency, right? You win 5, you lose 3. I think Javon would tell you that he's not performed. And I think I saw, if I'm not mistaken, I saw Brian Baldinger was on the No Huddle podcast with Brian Rennick and Al Sacco. Shout out to them, man. Those are my guys on 49ers Web Zone. And he even said, "Yeah, I'm not seeing it." He goes, "At least with Bosa, he's not finishing, and I think the pressures, everything, it'll come. But yeah, right now through 8 games, you know, Hargrave Hargrave hasn't lived up right away. He just hasn't, and especially lately. Um, how much of that is again, Wilkes, with his schemes, right? Because he seems like he wants to run stunts. That's something that's really good for Eric Armstead because Eric is so fast and big and like he can affect things, and it's like that's a way to spring him. But I think you kind of just expecting that guy that you got from Philly, right? Like schematics be damned. You were looking for a game wrecker. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be mad at anybody who has been underwhelmed by Hargrave at this point, especially these last few weeks. It just feels like the entire pass rush, unfortunately, hasn't been there. Now, how much is that is woke schematics? How much is that is them underperforming? But that's why I kind of was saying this earlier, Aaron, is I want to make sure that we assign blame to everyone. Your defense is underperforming. The players are underperforming. They are missing tackles. They are not getting home. They are missing passes on the back end. They are giving up penalties. And Steve Wilkes might not be putting them in the right position to win. I think there's no one right clear answer. But if you're talking about Javon Hargrave right now, I would say it isn't going as well as it did earlier on. 100%.
Yeah, I don't know. I lean more towards the fact that the whole defense has been really, really bad than poking at one guy. I feel like Bosa hasn't been himself. One thing that really angered me, and I don't really get. I've gotten better with players not getting angry at them. But one thing that really angered me is when Bosa. He shouldn't have said it because it was obvious that that's what everybody else was thinking. That maybe missing training camp was a bad thing, and I'm thinking, you think? You think that was
Well,
a bad thing?
but,
Really?
but why would you say that? Because TJ Watt did the same exact thing and he just comes through the door like
I don't understand what it is with Bosa. I don't know if he needs to take it. He needs time to get the engine revving because of how much physicality and how much work he puts into everything. And you watch Bosa at the end of games, and he looks like he ran like a 5K or something. He's just so completely
he's
spent,
on
and
for
it's like,
every snap too. Like that's the thing is you can't even get this guy off the field. Like it's frustrating.
but the Wilkes thing really, really. I know I'm bouncing into that, but like everything that's kind of happened with him coming down to the sideline, with him having to address the blown call at the end of the half with the
S-
Vikings,
Scapegoating.
with him. Yeah, I'm telling you right now, and I said this to a couple other streams, the Niners don't become what they're supposed to be, and this season ends as a failure, and they need to find someone to fall on the sword. That man is going to be Steve Wilkes. They were
Oh
setting
yeah.
him up to be the fall
Oh
guy,
yeah.
no question
Oh
about
yeah.
it. Kyle, when he's asked about him, he doesn't go out of his way to have his back, which is telling. And some of the comments from a guy like Bosa, like, we used to just do stuff with the front four, and I really don't know. And then Bosa when he talks, he always sounds like he's half asleep or high or whatever. And like he just like there's just something not vibing with me that I feel isn't vibing with this team with Wilkes. I feel like Wilkes' personality and Kyle's personality and the fact that Wilkes was once a head coach, there's just this weird dynamic that I personally feel that doesn't feel like it fits. Whereas the previous two guys, they were like all in, all Niners, like all trying to achieve the same goal. And then you got a guy who's essentially like, I'm just trying to get my career back on track so that I could become a head coach again. So I'm just going to try to do whatever I got to do here to make that happen. That's the
Yeah.
vibe I'm getting.
Yeah, and Mike Silver wrote an article today in which Deshaun Gibson said, "We as players have to help when the play call is bad."
Saw that. That's a shot right across the brow. Bam.
That is incredibly telling. Like,
Yes.
it's true, but you don't say that,
Right. Somebody just got thrown under the bus. Did you feel that?
right? And I feel like I'm shocked that this is happening, but yeah, it's absolutely Steve Wilks. Everything, right? Steve
Yeah.
Wilks is the reason that this team is missing tackles. Steve Wilks is the reason that Joe Burrow was in the arms of 2 defensive linemen and got away and then threw a dot to T. Higgins. That was all Steve Wilks' fault. But don't worry, Aaron. Steve Wilks is going to be on the sideline, so everything's fixed. Like, this
Yep.
is
Now that we
literally
got
everything.
him and Chase Young, the defense is going to return to 2019 form. Yeah.
Again,
Uh,
there are many factors to why this defense isn't performing. Steve Wilks is one of them as the defensive coordinator. You are one of them. But let's not sit here and act like this defense hasn't underperformed because of the players. And I think it's an easy way to escape criticism. It's an easy way to escape accountability. Like Fred Warner, 15.4% missed tackles. Drake Greenlaw right behind you, in terms of missed tackles, right behind you.
they're not swarming like they've been in the past. Where like
Correct.
it's a team effort. It's one guy flying in, completely missing people.
Yep.
Like almost like he's got a jetpack. He's boom gone and guys going upfield. Or it's just, bro, I don't get mad anymore like I used to watching 49er games. This season, that missed sack where the two guys had Burrow and he didn't get that. There was a couple of mother that came out, and I'm like, I was so mad
Yeah.
because that's like those are game changing plays that happen if you get that guy, and it completely changed
Right.
the feel of the game from that point on. Yeah, it's not all on him, but I feel like if this ship goes awry, and things don't end the way, I mean, the organization already gave their confidence in the coach and the GM by giving them contract extensions and giving Lynch a new uh, title so that they can keep Adam Peters around, I would assume.
Hmm.
So somebody's got to be the fall guy if bad season. It's not like Jed York has the balls to do anything to either of those guys. So why not have it be why not have it be Wilks? It just seems like it's going that way. And I just have this vibe, and I'm a vibe person, and my vibe could be totally trash and it doesn't mean anything, but I don't know, man. That like you said, no more excuses. They come out and lay an egg on Sunday.
This is a must win.
Yeah. Yeah,
This
it
is
is
as big.
totally a muscle. Christian McCaffrey said it.
Yeah.
He kind of
This is
said it
big.
in the midst of a conversation, like blah, 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 blah. This is a must win.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that caught me.
This is as big of a must win as there is. Again, the excuses are gone. You had a bye week to fix the schematic stuff. You added Chase Young, so that should help the pass rush. Debo's going to be back, so I don't want to hear it about the offense anymore. If Trent plays, then everybody's back.
Yeah.
You're running out of excuses now. There's nothing left, and you can't mess around anymore. Everybody talks about the Philadelphia Eagles running away with the number 1 seed. Their schedule is very tough going forward. Buffalo, Kansas City, Dallas again, Seattle again, right? And this is their recent stretch. Nobody is talking about the fact that the Detroit Lions have probably the easiest schedule going forward. I believe they get Chicago twice, Minnesota, Green Bay, the Saints, Dallas. Like, those are games that'll be a little bit tougher. But the Detroit Lions could mess around and win all their games and be the number 1 seed. Now,
That would be
going into
crazy,
Detroit,
but very
going
possible.
going into Detroit and going into Philly, I don't wanna like make sure I want to make sure that I get this right. I would 10 out of 10 times love to go to Detroit before I would love to go to Philly in a playoff game and try to knock them off. Like, I would take my shot in Detroit every time. I would try to put off the Philly trip as far as you can. But the only good thing is if the San Francisco 49ers turn it over, they get the Philadelphia Eagles. So you get your chance. Now you get your chance to get your game back. You play them. You
Yep.
play them. You can literally do that. But yeah, I would absolutely love to go to Detroit more than I would anytime in Philadelphia.
Did you go
And
to Philly
Detroit's really
last
good.
year for the championship game?
I didn't go. No. But I'm going for that game. But I'm just
There was a
what I'm
lot of
saying is,
bad
like,
experiences that happened last year from players wise
no,
to people that went.
I went I went in 2021. Nothing happened. The Niners won. That was that weird Jimmy game, and remember, like, they had that like 97-yard play, and then they stood tall on the on 4th down. Nothing
Yeah.
happened. Nothing happened. I
No
like we partied the
batteries,
whole weekend
nothing
in Philly.
getting chucked at you and stuff.
Nothing,
I
nothing,
heard some
nothing. And
people were getting.
we were sitting up high, so we were sitting up with the people that may
Oh,
not have as much class as like maybe some other people. Maybe I don't know.
some of the high end people down below. I
Right.
would definitely
But
be in
no,
that
but
midst.
what I mean by we is I would love to see the 49ers travel to Detroit before I would love to see them travel
Oh
to
yeah,
yeah, that's what I
I
mean.
think we
Not
could
me.
put. I think we could put some points on Detroit's
Yeah.
ass before
Yeah,
we could
not
push
not
them.
me. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like if the 49ers have to do a road game, put that Philly game off as far as you can. If you got to
Right.
go to Detroit, you got to go to Detroit. Make it happen. They're really good. I'm not like discounting them, but I'll take that. I will take that shot against Jared Goff and that team 10 out of 10 times before I go to Philly.
I'm trying to think. Uh, Keeping it on the defensive side, secondary. They had the trade deadline. We talked about it. They could have got a corner. You wanted a corner. I wanted edge. I wanted both actually because the way Tim Kawakami made it sound, it was like a given that they were going to go both. Didn't happen. They didn't make that the play for the corner because they wanted too much, and I'm glad the Niners didn't give up what they said they
Jalen Johnson.
yeah. Is the Womack and Luter thing excites you or give you a little bit of a good feeling, or are you kind of still up in the air about those two cats as well?
Luter's the one that I would be more intrigued with because Luter's the one who can play outside. Womack can't play outside. He's not built to play outside. He's not fast enough. He doesn't have the skills. He panics. He's a slot guy. Um, the Isaiah Oliver thing is tough because teams know, um, okay,
Yeah,
don't go
right.
at Lenore, don't go at Ward. We're gonna put our shiftiest guy in the slot. And as a defensive back, you're already on edge trying to play the receiver and trying to figure out what they're doing. A lot of teams are running motion with their slot guy who is faster. He's getting a head start. And now Isaiah Oliver is chasing. And by the time the ball is snapped, he's already got a full head of steam. Isaiah Oliver wasn't fast to begin with, right? So look, all
No,
right, you want to see Isaiah Oliver play better. But you do have to give credit to attacking the right way with motion, that cheat motion that Kyle was talking about, all those things. Um, if anybody excites me more, it's Luter. And I have no basis on saying this outside of his college tape because he hasn't put anything on film here. But Womack can't play outside. He cannot play outside. He's not an outside corner. Womack would be an Isaiah Oliver replacement, but I don't know if that's much of an upgrade. If it is, but if Luter can be the outside guy that I think that they're grooming him for, because what the 49ers do is they prepare for losses in the draft. Like
yes,
I
they do.
know this is guy's gonna come up and get signed and he wants money. Well, let's fill this hole now, right? Like let's go and get this guy now. But if Luda can be that outside guy and give them a little bit down the stretch and show them that, then you kick Lenore inside. It shows you now that this can be solidified. Luda's an outside guy. Womack isn't. So if you're looking for Womack to replace Oliver, okay, I can understand. But what you really should be rooting for is Luter being the outside guy to kick Lenore inside and having Womack and Oliver off the field. Because I think that's where you're the strongest as a secondary. If that comes to pass. I'm not predicting it, but Luter has the skill set to be an outside guy. And that's why they drafted him. And a lot of people felt like that was a good draft pick and a steal. Luter has the feeling of like one of those draft picks that we're just like, how the hell did he slip this far? How did the 49ers find him? Right. Like, and I think that's kind of where I'm at least the optimistic part of me, because not everything's doom and gloom, with me as a 49er fan. Um, I think Luter being outside would be a lot better.
I, I do you see the game this Sunday? Either of them playing, or do you think they're going to hold it off another week? Because
Nah, nah. Now I think it's too hard to incorporate them right now.
yeah,
It would take something really bad to happen. It would take Lenore turning into a pumpkin, or something like right, like, or it would take Isaiah Oliver like getting destroyed, for them to press those guys into duty. I don't see. I mean,
um,
Womack would be the guy that would be first off the bench. I don't see
yeah.
how you can put a guy like Luter who was on pup, this entire time, and throw him out there and then like expect him to succeed. It almost feels like remember when Jason Verrett came into the game against Pittsburgh. That's not fair. Like that's not
Yeah, they
fair to
brought him
do anything like
in,
that.
he got completely owned, and then they took him out, and you never saw him
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. Well, and then again, like you just had to give him time. So yeah, I don't know if you can do that, but if anybody would be, it would be Womack because he's at least played. But I was at that Atlanta game last year when he was outside. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. It was not good. He's just not an outside corner, but he can be a very valuable slot. He just has to tackle and get his helmet dirty in the run game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing they like about Oliver is Oliver will stick his head in the run game. He's just slow as molasses. I mean, I guess my thing is, I think they saw what they had, and maybe they didn't think they needed to sell the farm to go get another player on during the trade deadline. With the situation at corner being what it is, real quick, and then we'll get out of here. I want to kick ahead to next year. Um, with the way the Niners are currently slotted to pick, probably in the we hope in the back end of the first round. They have a first round pick. They have a second round pick. Did you see the 49ers doing anything with a bunch of picks and maybe doing something to move up, say like bottom, I'd say like between an area of like 17 and 24, trying to get themselves an offensive tackle going into the draft next year? Because I feel
That
like
would
that's a
have to
must.
Yeah, that would have to be the only way. And that's kind of what we were talking about because everybody's just like, oh, you have to draft offensive tackle. But when you find yourself in a position where you're in your draft slot and you draft an offensive tackle for the sake of drafting an offensive tackle, it puts you in a place that is not. It's poor process.
It's not
It
advantageous because now this
No,
guy's expected to be great.
yeah, it's poor process, right? Um, because you have a position of need doesn't mean that you need to look away
Yeah,
from
overdraft.
or get away from best player available,
Right.
right? That's what they did in the third round. Taking Jake Moody was filling a need. You could have stocked the right tackle cupboard with Dewan Jones
Right. Everybody
or
talks about Dewan Jones.
Blake Freeland.
They
Blake
did the
Freeland's
same
played
thing they did the same when they drafted Javon Kinlaw. They
right,
went player for player. That we lost the
right,
guy, so we're going to draft the guy.
and
It
you let
never
Tampa Bay
works.
jump you for Wirfs.
You imagine Wirfs on this team right now? We wouldn't even. I bet you did Trent Williams. They probably would have been like, "Yo, we're good. You can retire."
Or you know what? I think Wirfs is good enough that you could even like flip him like to the other side. Like you could have
Yeah,
moved him to the other side.
yeah.
Um,
Uh,
the draft evaluation is a crapshoot. But drafting for need as opposed to drafting what's on the board is always, in my opinion, going to get you in trouble. It's why the Giants are stuck with Daniel Jones. They could have had Josh Allen, and they could have drafted Daniel Jones in the second round if they loved him that much. Nobody liked Daniel Jones like that. Like nobody did.
that
That's
is the epitome of somebody being overdrafted.
right. Like you could have had Josh Allen, the pass rusher, and then you could have had that guy that you still like. Like I don't have a problem with you liking a guy. Like if you're I sound like John Lynch. If you're convicted on a guy, like I feel like go ahead and go for it, but everything in good time, right? Like either like fall back in the draft, move up in the draft, like when you see it happen. But drafting for need just because you have a need is where you're gonna find yourself in a bad spot because now a guy's overdrafted because you just had a need and he has to work. And that's the part that is just I don't understand that process. I would rather do best player available because people act like, oh, well, all right, here it is, Aaron. You don't have a need because we have so and so and this guy and this guy and this guy. Do injuries ever happen in the NFL?
Especially with this team, right? Yeah.
So like the
Never.
idea
It's never enough to have a certain player at a certain position.
it's the idea that the team, like I said, I like Jair Brown. I think he's the next guy in line, and I do think he is going to be a contributor down the line. I really believe that. The Moody pick and the Cam Latu pick are just like head scratching. Like they're just head scratching. And neither of them makes sense. Latu's not going to play all year, and Moody's a kicker. Like you literally could have literally drafted a right tackle, maybe another linebacker or a wide receiver, anything that would have actually helped you. So it's again like the draft process isn't perfect, but I am baffled at this third round. At this third round.
Sometimes the Niners draft as if they've won a Super Bowl. They're very cavalier
Right.
with some of their picks
Right.
sometimes, and it
Oh,
drives me
we'll just
insane.
take a we'll just take a kicker. And now this kicker has to work. Otherwise, you look insane.
And so far, your returns on him have been like he was good for like 5 weeks, and now all of a sudden he looks like a problem.
But Aaron, the Dallas Cowboys, after having Maher, they selected an undrafted free agent who never kicked the football. He was a soccer player. He hasn't missed a kick. The New York Giants, they signed Graham Gano. Graham Gano goes on the IR. They hold tryouts with Randy Bullock, Robbie Gould, uh, Mason Crosby is out there as well too. These are guys that have made big kicks, right? They're on the couch. They're just waiting for the call, right? Like they don't got to be Rocky. They're not running up the mountain to fight Drago, right? They're
Yeah,
not in
yeah.
shape. They're not football players. Call them off the couch and make them kick footballs.
Dude could literally be eating pizza on the sideline, go kick a kick, go back eating his pizza.
Right. And then Sunday, and I'm going to keep bringing this up because it's the funniest thing to me in the world. Sunday, Houston played Tampa Bay. Houston's kicker, Kaimi Fairbairn, is injured. Their third string running back, Dare Agumbawale, kicked a 35-yard field goal right down the middle. And you're telling me that drafting a kicker, a franchise kicker, is the way you should go? No one drafts kickers. You find them on the street. You find them at Trader Joe's. You find them at Walmart. You find them on the couch. You find them as a soccer player, and you bring them in. Like it's just strange that now everybody's coming around to it, and it's just like, man, this was a bad pick from the beginning.
Yeah, I was high on the pick, and now I'm like, man, we could have had DeJuan Jones, and that would have been a big upgrade to Colton McKivitz, who's really ass cheese, but that's a whole discussion for another time. Hey, listen, man, I appreciate you coming through, making time, doing a little back-to-back stream on your Friday. Anything on the Jason Aponte's channel coming up? I mean, for people who don't know you, most of the people in here, I'm sure, do know you, but just as far as like your programming and what you do weekly.
No, I appreciate you, Aaron. And again, man, anytime, as long as I have the time to donate, I will do it for you, bro. I appreciate you, man, and much love to your channel and good luck to your channel. That's it's a tough thing to do this, and I think a lot of people lose sight of that, right? Like you do this and it's hard. It's hard. It's not easy, right? Because everybody loves to pick apart everybody's opinions. Everybody, loves to talk about people, but it's like we actually have to get up here and talk, right? Like, and we have to get up here and speak. And sometimes the rewards aren't right there in front of you all the time, right? It's frustrating to look at something that you put your time and effort into and not seeing the results that you want. So the hardest thing to do is to just keep going. So I commend you on that, Aaron, 100%, man, because we've all been there, man. Like, you put up a video and that shit has 21 views. It's tough to look at that, right? Like, it's tough to look at that, right? Like, and I've done it, right? But like, again, passion always. If this is not fun, then it's not for you. Like, I think, you understand all those things. But man, thank you, man. But yeah, like for me, same old stuff. Like if you follow me on the channel, post game show, sprint right option, all that stuff, state of the franchise with Brad Graham, bully ball with Steph Sanchez, all those things that we got going on. And yeah, if you want to read my written work, ninersnation.com. Every single day there's an article that's on there from me. So yeah, again, Aaron, appreciate the invite, bro. And appreciate you asking me to come on, because again, like, I'm just a guy like you. So, same old stuff.
I appreciate it, man. And it's interesting being a New Yorker and having another fellow New Yorker. It's so hard, man. We're on the East Coast and we have to cheer for a team that's way on the other side of the country.
Yep.
It's people always ask me, like, how are you a Niners fan? You should be a Buffalo Bills fan. I'm like, really? Is that even a question? So yeah, 5 Super Bowls, no Super Bowls. Yeah, okay. But everybody, thank you so much. I will see you hopefully tomorrow with Bash on 49er Money YouTube channel, and then I will see you on Monday on Niners Coast to Coast. It'll be on my channel. Hopefully we're talking about a victory instead of another loss. Take care, everybody. Peace.